Alright, what is up guys? I am back with another deck profile. I've been playing the new Synchron support that came out in the new Battles of Legend, as well as the new cards from the previous waves of support, such as Blazing Dominion and the Legendary 5Ds decks. And finally, after all those waves combined, we have what I think is probably the best this deck has ever been, even though there are lots of generically powerful Synchro monsters that are now banned, like Baron de Fleur and Chaos Ruler. I think that even though we're going for some very different kinds of payoffs of the extra deck than what we used to, the actual main deck is more consistent than ever, and it's more resilient to interruption than ever. But before I get into that, I want to give a huge shout out to Hawk's Nest Gaming, which is a local OTS store in North Georgia here in the United States, and they just celebrated their 5th anniversary since grand opening in 2021, and they have been my favorite place to go to, probably in my history of playing card games ever, and I helped them put together a little celebration event where I made a special video and put it up on the channel if you guys are curious to check it out, helping them celebrate and congratulating that anniversary milestone. And this was the deck I played for the 5th anniversary tournament, and I'm pretty happy with how it went. It was a very, very fun tournament. I think this deck did okay-ish. I definitely want to play it a lot more. I think you'll find this list is not remarkably different from a lot of the lists that are out there, but I do have some opinions about some particular cards, so it's worth listening to even if you think it's kind of cookie-cutter and not particularly different from a lot of the popular lists out there. Let's go ahead and get into it. So for the main deck, we're obviously playing the 3 Junkmeister. This card is crazy. It's the new best starter in the archetype, and we have the Junk Armor as the Poplar-esque effect. So you reveal a monster that mentions Junk Warrior or Stardust in your extra deck, and special this guy. Then he adds a Junk to hand. He adds this guy. This guy, when he's added, he specials himself, and he can Lone Fire for any Synchron. And then you can reduce Junkmeister's level as a ignition effect. You can just activate this on the field and reduce his level by up to 2. So typically what we do is we do that effect, we reveal Stardust, we special this guy, we add this guy, he specials himself, he tutors for Scrap Synchron, and then this guy reduces his level to 2, and we make Scrap Warrior, and that searches our Synchro Fellowship. But you don't have to go exactly that route. You could go immediately for Speeder. You could also not reduce his level and tribute this guy, get Scrap Synchron, and make Naturia Beast is something I thought about doing. I haven't found a way to make that really work with my combos yet, but obviously it's incredibly versatile, and it does not use your normal summon. We have the other non-tuners. We have the one Full Speed Warrior, the one Side Reflector, and the one Assault Sonic Warrior. So I really love the design of this card from the Legendary 5Ds decks. It just adds a card that mentions Junk Warrior, and so that's how we usually get to our Synchro Fellowship, which is one of our new spell card as well, the Junk Signal, which I'll talk about. And then these two guys are part of a package that is sort of an alternate starter package to the Junkmeister. And if we open either of these guys or a way to get to one of them, like Emergency Teleport or the Dual Evolution Assault Zone, then we can go through basically our entire combo without even using Junkmeister and hold that as potential follow-up or a backup starter in case we get like highly interrupted. So this guy on summon adds a card that mentions Assault Mode Activate. This guy on summon either adds the trap card Assault Mode Activate itself or a Synchron, and that's difficult to remember because I thought he did the same thing and just added a card that mentions Assault Mode Activate. He specifically adds either Assault Mode Activate, the trap, or a Synchron. And so what you would do is you would either special this guy off of E-Telly, and his effect would add the field spell. The field spell adds this guy because you control him and or the field spell. You can special this guy, add Scrap Synchron, and then synchro with Scrap Synchron in hand with this guy for Scrap Warrior. Same thing, you could normal this guy, add Scrap Synchron, synchro for Scrap Warrior, etc. But you don't want to use your normal summon on these guys if you can help it, because you want to use your normal summon on Junk Synchron, obviously. So we're obviously playing 2 Junk Synchron. We don't have to play 3 anymore, but you do have to play exactly 2. So you play 1 guaranteed as part of your combo because you get it off of Synchro Fellowship and you use your normal summon on it. And then the second one you either get off of a search with Full Speed Warrior, depending on what you opened. Like if you found another way, if you've hard opened Synchro Fellowship or Junk Signal or another way to get to them, you would add the second copy. Or when you synchro with Jet Synchron, you'll add the second copy. And the graveyard effect of Synchro Fellowship lets you banish it, get an additional normal of a Synchron, and that's where you can summon the second copy to finish off your combo. So 2 is required, no more, no less. Next we play 3 of Stardust Synchron, and the 1 Stardust Trail as the complete package here. So this card is also a 1-card starter for this deck's main combo. It's less resilient than the Junkmeister, but normal summoning Stardust Synchron also does everything you want as well, because it adds a card that mentions Stardust Dragon. So previously, before this current wave of support, the only thing you were really adding off of this guy was Stardust Illumination, but now you are able to add Stardust Illumination or Synchro Fellowship or Junk Signal. And so it basically gets you, just like the other cards I mentioned, to your same combo either way. It also has the effect, as you should probably be familiar with, because this is from an older era of support at this point, where you can tribute a monster and revive him from your graveyard. And then this card has the effect of, if it is tributed, or if a monster is tributed, you can special summon from the hand or graveyard. So sometimes what will happen is, when you resolve Junk Speeder, you'll use his effect to search Stardust Illumination, and then if you have Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon on the field, you can activate Stardust Illumination and send this directly to the field instead of to the graveyard, because if you control a Synchro monster that mentions Stardust, the Stardust Trail can go directly to the field instead of going to the graveyard. And then you would synchro with this guy and the Axel for Crimson Dragon, and then you would use the graveyard effect, tributing this to bring it back, and this just revives itself. So you basically just replace both bodies and get ready to make another level 8 synchro. So pretty good package here, but something I dislike about this deck that I'll already talk about right now is the amount of like soft garnets that it plays. So you don't want to open these guys, and really, I don't really want to open this guy either, if I'm being honest. But mainly these two, the amount is, these guys are soft garnets. They don't ruin your combo if you open them. I think this one is worse. But this one, if it's in your hand and you tribute with Junk, with a Stardust Synchron, it still comes out the same way. But ideally, you don't want to draw either of these, and I opened the Junk Armor multiple times during that tournament. It was very unfortunate. So having multiple ways to start your combo is really good, and I think that's what's desirable with building this deck. But yeah, having soft garnets, even if they're not the worst cards in the world, does really ruin the consistency of an otherwise good deck. Now on to the tuners. We have, of course, the one Scrap Synchron. It's able to be used as a tuner in the hand, so you're able to use it with... And the Scrap Warrior requires it, so we need this guy in order to get that guy, who has a very powerful effect. We'll get to that. The other one that we play is Jet Synchron. We actually use the other effect of Jet Synchron to search a junk monster, and there were people I played against that did not even know this guy had that effect, because they're used to just the effect where you discard a card and revive him from the graveyard. The problem is that if you summon him off of Junk Speeder and then you synchro with him and get the search, and then you can always bring him back later. But the issue that happens a lot of times with this guy is when you revive him off of his effect in the graveyard and then you synchro with him, he gets banished. So you never get the opportunity to use that effect to search a junk monster, because he doesn't get sent to the graveyard after he gets synchro summoned a lot of the times. Assault Synchron does not suck to open, because you can just special this guy out of your hand by taking a random 700 burn damage. And then similarly, Revolution Synchron is our other 3. And also does not suck to open. So like these are our other levels, and none of them really suck to open. These guys, you would think with the Synchron deck, the way Junk Speeder works and the way previous builds have worked in the past, a lot of the targets for Junk Speeder are bricky, or they are garnets in some kind of way. That's not really true with this build anymore. All of these are technically fine to draw, and you can still do your combo the exact same way. The Revolution Synchron is a little bit better in terms of, like, you can use it as a level 3 body on the field. It's usually what gets you to a level 8 synchro initially, and then you can revive it as a level 1 by just milling a card. So it's almost like a glow-up bulb. So you get multiple accesses to a level 1 tuner without having to play, but while still being able to summon both of these guys off of Junk Speeder. This is actually the worst one to draw. This is the worst one to see in your opening hand. If you can help it, if you can find a way to discard this guy into the graveyard in your opening hand, I would say go for it. But otherwise, the rest of these are fine to draw. This one sucks to draw comparatively compared to the other ones. Next, we have hand traps. So I have one Ghost Ogre, which is a hand trap at an E-Telly target. It's an E-Telly target for a level 3 tuner. So it seems like the best card to play in that slot. We just have 3 Ash mainly for Fuas. And we're playing 2 Bestials. And I don't know how I feel about these. It is nice that they are level 6 bodies that can help you synchro summon. But these underperformed significantly in the tournament. There were just not that many decks that I could effectively hit with them. Especially round 4 was Radiant Typhoon, which had 0 cards that could be targeted by these guys. So I ended up siding them out. I don't know for sure if I would continue to play them, but they are good hand traps that also become bodies, which helps with synchro summoning. So in theory, they're good, but they did underperform quite a bit at that tournament. That's it for the monsters. We are playing 3 copies of Junk Signal. So hot take, this is the best card in the deck, by far. This card is incredible. It is not quite as good as its contemporaries in like magnet bonding or the Sulfur spell card that lets you do one of 3 different things like once per copy kind of thing. So the redundant copies end up being more different effects. It's not quite as good as those cards, but it's close. It has 1 of 2 effects. Each is a hard once. So if you activate one of the effects, you can't activate a second copy of this card in the same turn. But you can always set it and use that other effect on your opponent's turn. So the main thing this card does is it blanks Interruption against Junk Speeder. So if your opponent activates something as Chainlink 2 against a Synchro monster's effect, you can activate this as Chainlink 3 and negate that effect that they are using to respond to your Synchro. So if they go Ash Blossom, Ghost Ogre, Veiler, Imperm, Gamma, whatever, against Speeder, you just activate this and you go off, which is super, super cool. The other effect that it has is you contribute a monster on your field to special summon a monster from your, I think it's hand deck or graveyard that mentions Junk Warrior Stardust Dragon. And because it uses Junk Warrior and Stardust Dragon in its card text, it is searchable off of Full Speed Warrior and Stardust Synchron. So you are pretty much guaranteed to get at least 1 copy of this in your hand over the course of your combo. I think in theory you're expecting to have to use it to negate interactions when trying to build your board. But quite often I have this at the end of my combo and I can use it to extend a little bit further with, or just set it as interruption on my opponent's turn. So I think this is the best card in the deck. This is the reason to play the deck right now. This card is absolutely crazy. This is a little bit of a controversial pick. This might be slightly unoptimal, but I was playing 3 Synchro Fellowship. So what I would love to do in my heart is cut one of these and cut 1 Stardust Synchron and play Wheel Synchron and Crossroads Sonic Chick. But the reason I chose not to do that is just for consistency, where the Stardust Synchron is a 1-card starter if it comes down to it, and so is this. Hard opening this does not suck. If you can find a way to get to this, it's not bad. Redundant copies do suck. It sucks to open more than 1 copy or draw a second copy off of a Hyper Librarian, whatever. And I think there's even some builds of the deck that play 1 of this, and you can probably get away with that. But I do want to see it on my opening hand. I did want the consistency, and again, I feel like Wheel Synchron and the Crossroads Sonic Chick just have a tendency to add to your quantity of like soft garnets, and I just don't like the way that feels. Maybe I will test it with 2 of these and 2 Stardust Synchron and those 2 cards, because I know a lot of people do not like 3 of this. They play 2 or fewer. Because of the new support playing, maybe before the Blazing Dominion and Battles of Legends support, you would play 3 of this, but most people do not right now. But I opted for that, and I did not really brick on more than 1, so it seemed fine. We're playing the 1 of searchable spells, so the Dual Evolution Assault Zone, the Stardust Rumble, and the Stardust Illumination. These do not suck to hard open. If anything, opening Synchro Rumble's a little bit rough because you would have liked that card in your opening hand to be literally anything else. Same thing with Stardust Illumination. So these kind of suck to hard open. This is actually a starter if you hard open it. So you would activate this, search the Assault Sonic Warrior, special the Assault Sonic Warrior because you control a card that mentions Assault Mode activate, and then use this effect to get Scrap Synchro for Scrap Warrior. So you can do your combo without using your normal summon by just hard opening this. Otherwise, you would search this off of Psy Reflector, which you can do either on his normal summon or his special summon off of E-Telly. But these two are required as part of the combo. I think this more so than this. But next we have the 3 E-Telly. This is a crazy starter in this deck. So again, if I open both this and Junkmeister, I'm going to fire this before I fire Junkmeister because I want to be able to go through that line of like special Psy Reflector add, etc., and try to go through that combo before I even activate Junkmeister, because my opponent's probably going to respond to some of those effects throughout that part of the combo, and I haven't even gone for my best starter yet. So I will always fire this. But the other thing that this does is it gives us cards to activate to create chains in a particular way on our opponent's turn. So if we draw into more copies of this through Hyper Librarian, it gives us something to set on the field to activate his Chain Link to in response to something and use our effects in particular ways that benefit us. If you were wanting to play Zaylin in this deck, then this would be a good card to manipulate Chain Links in order to get Zaylin's Negate online. Or if you were playing like Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss in some kind of convoluted way of summoning that, then you could activate this in response to Dark Ruler No More, and then have the Abyss activate his Chain Link 3 targeting the Dark Ruler. But nobody's really on Dark Ruler right now in this format at all, so that was pretty much a non-issue. But yeah, rocks to open, and it's potentially good as a card to set to just have something to play around with and with interactions that your opponent may have on your turn. Similarly, we have 3 Forbidden Droplet, which is obviously really good as a board breaker, but it's also really good to draw off of Hyper Librarian and set it. And activating it is pretty free if you've drawn all those cards off of Librarian. And you can also send the Dual Evolution Assault Zone, because after you've searched the one card off of that, it's useless. So if you send that, this card is basically free. And it's quite strong. We have Called by the Grave and Talents, and that is it for the spells. Lastly, we have a playset of Imperm. So we're Imperm, in addition to Droplet, are additional interactions we can play both first or second that interact with our opponent's board that we can draw off Hyper Librarian and set them on our field when we end our turn. So our opponent sees our Synchro monsters we have up, but these are unknown points of interaction that they don't know about, that we can use to further interrupt our opponent. But they're also good going second if you lose the die roll, because you can wait until your opponent has an end board and then try to Imperm a guy to shut off their board. Same thing with Droplet. You can also activate Imperm and then chain Droplet to send the Imperm and negate 2 things, potentially. On to the extra deck. One of the most important monsters in the extra deck is Scrap Warrior. So he requires Scrap Synchron, but he adds a card that mentions Junk Warrior on summon, and he also says your monsters that have Warrior in the name cannot have their effects negated, which means Full Speed Warrior, when it's revived off of Junk Synchron, will resolve, even though it's normally negated under the effect of Junk Synchron, which is really cool, because not only does that give you a combo line that would previously not exist were it not for that, but it also prevents interaction against those cards because they can't be negated, which is in theory an incredibly powerful effect, but seems perfectly balanced on this guy. We have the almighty, all-powerful Speeder, the most infamous and powerful Synchron card. Has been since 2019 when it was first printed, or 2018 actually when it was first printed. So everybody knows it's like, oh yeah, you always have the one guy at the back tables comboing with Synchron, and you negate Junk Speeder and he scoops it up, and it's like, well, not anymore. So this card is extremely powerful, does summon as many tuners out of the deck with different levels as possible, and the only issue is the fact that he's the only sometimes the only non-tuner body when you do that. So if your opponent finds a way to like destroy the Scrap Warrior or this guy, and you have a board of all tuners, it can't be a problem. And that's where the backup plan of the wheel synchron comes in. But I didn't really have that happen in my matchups. We have Hyper Librarian, Axel Synchron, and Stardust Charge Warrior. Hyper Librarian obviously lets you draw cards every time you Synchro Summon, and you draw a ton of cards in this combo pretty reliably. Axel Synchron is actually the card in the extra deck I make the least, but you can use it to send you can send your Jet Synchron or your Revolution Synchron to the graveyard, or even your Stardust Synchron to extend with that in a simplified game state. And if you send the Stardust Synchron, you can make this guy a 9, and it makes making an 11 a lot easier, which we'll talk about. And then Charge Warrior, we have to convert Librarian into Charge Warrior as part of our combo. We get an additional draw off of that, and it makes our levels a little bit easier for what we're trying to accomplish. I can't wait for the Legendary Arc 5 decks when we can get a non-Gold Series print of this guy. It will be pretty cool. We have the Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon and the original Stardust Dragon. I'll show the other level 8 we have as well. We have Psyframe Omega. So what we're doing with these guys is this is required as part of our combo. It revives a level 2 or lower tuner. It gets us into our level 10, the Bestial Dissipator. I'd never used the quick effect Axel Synchro effect of it, but if you do that, it is a way to, because basically what you're doing is you are decreasing your options in the extra deck by 1 card by summoning the original Stardust, but in doing that, you are making the monster you summon unaffected by activated effects for the rest of the turn. So if you use this effect, tribute it for the original Stardust, and then synchro with the guy you revived off of the first effect to make Bestial Dissipator, the Bestial Dissipator is immune to hand traps basically for the rest of the turn, which is like okay. It's like kind of all right, but I often just don't do that because I kind of want the regular Stardust still in the extra deck for other effects I'll need to use later, or to just, if I've used almost all my extra deck and I need to do a grind game situation, I want the body still in there to be able to make something, and it does come up. This deck has way greater grind game than like the Dragoonity deck I showed earlier, for example. It's just way more resilient, has way more versatility than that. And then Omega, we loop this guy twice as part of our going first combo and rip 2 cards out of our opponent's hand. It's broken. This guy should never be at any quantity more than 1. And we have our 9s. We have Croco Dragon, and we have Trishula. So I don't love these guys. I don't make them super often. But the Croco Dragon can gain a crazy amount of attack because of how many cards you draw. It also can represent like a quick effect pop by discarding some of the cards you drew. It is your Crimson Dragon target to be able to summon Trishula. So this guy is a 9 you can make with 2 materials, which is way easier than making a 9 with 3 materials like with Trish. And if you make this guy with Crimson Dragon on the field and the Crimson Dragon target him to make Trish, then you have the rip an extra card out of your opponent's hand with Trish, plus something they have on the field or the graveyard. So the fact that Trish can rip 1 card from each of those locations is awesome, but unlike the Necros version, it doesn't require a card in all 3 locations. So very powerful, and also a card that was at 1 for a long time for similar reasons to Omega. Our only level 10 is Bestial Dissipator. So a lot of people I'm seeing are playing more level 10s than the level 11s that I'm playing. They're also playing Arms of Genix Return 0 and regular Majestic Star Dragon. I will eventually experiment with that, but right now I'm playing this guy in the 11s. So this guy is an interruption on your end board because he has the ability to shuffle back a banished monster and either pop a card if it's your card, or banish a card, or negate a card if it's your opponent card you're shuffling back. So he's a disruption on your end board, powerful boss monster. He can extend by letting you summon back your Stardust Synchron or your Stardust Trail from the banish zone back to the field, and he lets you loop Omega. So just crazy card. And then we have our 11s. We have 3 11s we play. So Jiraishin is the most generic. He's the only one of the 11s that can be with 2 materials. This guy we never summon under his original summoning conditions. And so we basically make Jiraishin, and then we will summon Crimson Dragon, and the last card in the extra deck, Crimson Dragon, will target this guy and summon this guy, and that's usually our end board, is these 2 plus the Bestial Dissipator. And that's pretty strong, but it's even stronger when you've ripped 2 cards out of your opponent's hand and you have Forbidden Droplet and Imperm and all kinds of crazy stuff set that you've drawn off of Hyper Librarian. And then it's also possible if your opponent does not fully clear that board and it comes back around to your turn and you have one of these 2 guys still left and you make Crimson Dragon again, you can make this guy and completely blow out your opponent, which I did actually multiple times in that tournament. There was a round where I think I was playing against Elf Note Power Patron, and the guy failed to completely crack my board just because of how, like, this card banishes itself to do its Omni Negate, and it comes back in the end phase. So it banishes itself. He wasn't able to kill me. It comes back. I make Crimson Dragon again, target this guy, make this guy banish his whole field and attack for game, because this guy can attack twice. If there's a Synchro monster that mentions Stardust in the graveyard, which you're always going to have the Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon at the very least, so this guy can always attack for lethal no matter what. Very, very powerful Synchro lineup. I don't know if I would change it that much. Also, you're probably never going to have the effect of this where it floats into the original Trishula, but having both in the extra deck is kind of nice. This is mainly just a Crimson Dragon target to banish cards on our opponent's side of the field, and it's pretty strong at doing that. It's also super fun to resolve. Just a fun card to play overall. I will try the level 10s. I don't really love Majestic Star Dragon. I don't think it's nearly as powerful as the Shooting Majestic Star Dragon. But Arms of Genix Return 0 does seem really powerful. You guys know that I like that card quite a bit in the Genesis Rose Dragon deck. So onto the side deck here. In the side deck I played Fuelos, obviously. I would side that in for every time I was going second. We had Salesban to call Droll. I didn't actually end up playing with this because most of my opponents were not on Droll, and you can actually play under Droll fairly well. So I think I will probably cut this for some other stuff. I know I want to play Crossout Designator, because here's the thing is you can Salesban and call you can call Droll, or you can call something like Super Poly if you're going second, your opponent has it set. But you can't call Fuelos because they can just chain Fuelos to it if you're going first. So ended up kind of underperforming in this deck, and I feel like what I would rather play is something like Crossout Designator, which will always hit Fua, and maybe a Solemn Judgment or something like that, and something else, but I'll have to think about it. I was just really looking forward to this card going into the tournament, and it kind of underperformed, so not crazy about that. We're playing a very kind of seems like almost an old school package at this point of Thrust and Lightning Storm, and we have other Thrust targets I'll talk about. This card did do fairly well, but the main Thrust target we're playing is actually a trap card. So my game plan for Fua, I only got to do it like maybe once, was to just play into it as much as possible. If I open Thrust, or if I was drawing into Thrust off of Hyper Librarian, just play into Fua as much as possible, let them draw as many cards as they could possibly want, and then Thrust for this card. So that after their draw phase, you shuffle back everything in their hand except for 2 cards, and they start with a 2-card hand on their turn, which is basically game winning. Was not as reliable as I thought it would be because it is predicated on your opponent. If you side this in and you brick on it, it's bad because it requires your opponent to specifically play a Charmy. I did have a player who was on Gem Knight, and he did both Fua and Perulia on me back to back, and I didn't have Thrust, and I was like, well, I think we know how this game is going to go, but actually ended up working out in my favor just fine. He couldn't play through the interruptions on my... He later drolled me to stop drawing cards in his combo, which was probably not the right call, because he actually did run out of starters at one point, and I did win that game. And then the last side deck card, the most diabolical one, is Gravity Collapse. So what I thought about playing here was like Manadium Reframing as like an Omni Negate. I think I've talked about that before. This card does pretty much win the game. If you tell your opponent you can't even summon, then that's the end of the game. And it was only really good against the Radiant Typhoon player because all of their guys are inherent. It was not good against like the Branded Draco Tail and stuff like that, where everything is fusions invoked. It's not good against that. So they have to do an inherent summon, which is usually something like Junkmeister, for example, is an inherent summon, but a lot of the Radiant Typhoon guys are like, hey, you have stuff in your back row, I can special this guy, or however they work. And that was a perfect opportunity to use this card. But other than that, it didn't come up as much, but if a deck plays into it, it literally wins the entire game. So I think I actually used it on one of the duels I got against the Elf Note Power Patron was because of this card. So card is stupidly overpowered if it comes up. All right, so here's probably the best one card combo that you should be familiar with if you're playing this deck, which is just Junkmeister. So in order to special summon Junkmeister, we reveal Stardust Dragon in our extra deck, but you can reveal any Synchro monster that mentions Stardust or Junk in it. This guy, funny enough, does not mention Stardust Dragon or Junk Warrior specifically by name in his card text, which means he is not searchable off of Junk Signal or Synchro Fellowship, which is kind of annoying. But reveal Stardust, for example, we'll special this guy, and then on summon he's going to add a Junk monster from deck to hand. We'll add the Junk Armor, and when the Junk Armor is added to hand, it special summons itself. It's like Poplar. And from here we can use its effect. It's like Lone Fire. From here we contribute it to special summon a Junk monster or Synchron monster from the deck, and that is going to special summon out the Scrap Synchron. Next, we can use the Ignition effect of Junkmeister to reduce his level to 2 and Synchro for 3 with these two. We'll go ahead and make Scrap Warrior. Scrap Warrior is going to add from deck to hand a card that mentions Junk Warrior. We're going to get the Synchro Fellowship here. And when we activate that, we're going to add from deck to hand 2 cards, a Junk Synchron and a card that mentions Junk Warrior. So we're going to add Junk Synchron and the Full Speed Warrior and discard the Full Speed Warrior. Next, we use our normal summon on Junk Synchron, and its effect will revive the Full Speed Warrior out of the graveyard. And normally, the Junk Synchron would negate the effect of the monster it special summons out of the graveyard, but because of Scrap Warrior, it prevents monsters with Warrior in their name from having their effects negated, so it resolves anyway, and adds a spell or trap from our deck to our hand that mentions Junk Warrior as well. So we'll add the Junk Signal here. This is what insulates our Junk Speeder line and lets us go crazy. So we'll hold on to that in our hand. And we'll go ahead and Synchro for 5. We'll make Junk Speeder. If our opponent tries to Ash, Veiler, Ogre, Imperm, etc., we can activate a Junk Signal to negate that. So we're going to special summon as many tuners with different levels from our deck as possible. So we'll get Stardust Synchron. So we get a 3. We get a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1. And on summon, the Stardust Synchron triggers and adds a card from deck to hand that mentions Stardust Dragon. So we add the Stardust Illumination. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and Synchro for 5. So we'll Synchro with the Assault Synchron and the Scrap Warrior for Hyper Librarian. And now every time we Synchro summon, we get to draw a card. So we'll go ahead and Synchro with these two. For the Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon, we go Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2. The Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon is going to revive from the graveyard the Assault Synchron. And the Hyper Librarian is going to let us draw a card. The Hyper Librarian is a when, and it is mandatory. So it is when a monster, when you Synchro summon, draw a card. So it always activates Chainlink 1, and whatever else is going to be Chainlink 2. So we're not using these draws as part of our combo here. This is a one-card combo just using Junkmeister. So from here, we'll go ahead and Synchro for 12. For the Crimson Dragon, again, Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2. The Crimson Dragon is going to add from deck to hand a card that mentions the Crimson Dragon. So it's going to add that Synchro Rumble, and we'll draw a card. From here, we'll go ahead and activate this Synchro Rumble, reviving the Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon from the graveyard. And then while this is on the field, we're going to leave it just like that for a second. We are going to activate the Stardust Illumination and special summon from our deck the Stardust Trail. And the reason we can do this is normally you send Stardust Trail straight to the graveyard, but if you control a Synchro monster that mentions Stardust Dragon, it can go right to the field. So we're going to put the Stardust Trail right in the field just like that. And then we are going to Synchro for 10 with the Assault Synchron and the Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon for Bestial Dissipator. Draw a card. And now we'll use the graveyard effect of Stardust Synchron, tributing the Stardust Trail to revive itself. And then in a new chain, the Stardust Trail will activate. When a monster is tributed, it will special summon itself back from the graveyard. So we basically just get both of these bodies back on the field. Next, we can Synchro for 8. They both get banished. And we'll make Psyframe Lord Omega. Now, the unfortunate thing here is that we don't get the level 1 token that you get for using these guys for a Synchro Summon of a Dragon monster, but it doesn't matter because we're going to rip 2 cards out of our opponent's hand. So we're going to go Omega effect, rip a card out of our opponent's hand. We go Bestial Dissipator effect, special summon back the Omega effect, rip a second card out of our opponent's hand. And then we are going to Synchro for 6 with Librarian and Jet Synchron. For Stardust Charge Warrior, we'll go Chainlink 1 Charge Warrior, Chainlink 2 Jet Synchron. Because it was used in a Synchro Summon, we can add from deck to hand our second copy of Junk Synchron. And then we'll draw a card. So we are now going to activate the Graveyard effect of Synchro Fellowship, banishing it. Targeting either of these two, it doesn't matter which one. We'll target Bestial Dissipator, reduce this level to 9, and get an additional normal summon of our Junk Synchron. So we'll go ahead and normal summon it, activate its effect to revive a level 2 or lower monster. Doesn't matter which one as long as it's a non-tuner, so it can be this guy or it can be the Assault Sonic Warrior. And then we will Synchro 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 for Juraishin. And then we will use Crimson Dragon targeting Juraishin, shuffling it back to get our Shooting Majestic. So this is our end board here. It is a quick effect board wipe. It is a Omni Negate that dodges interaction and attacks for 4K. It's also a proactive negate on your turn where you can just ignition effect negate a monster. And it is the shuffle a banished card back to either destroy if it's your card or negate if it's your opponent's card. And we also rip 2 cards out of opponent's hand. The Junk Signal lets us negate something that's activated in response to our Synchro Monsters card effect or use it as an extender. And then we drew 4 cards in that combo as well. So we have whatever was left in our hand plus the things we drew. So if we drew additional points of interaction, and we can set the Call By, we can set the Imperm, we can set the Droplets, we can set the E-Tel, and we have even more forms of interaction. So you can do this same combo essentially with Dual Evolution Assault Zone or Assault Sonic Warrior. Things get a little bit awkward when you have already used your normal before you get to Junk Synchron, because then you need to use the Synchro Fellowship to reduce the level of Scrap Warrior to 2, and things get a little bit awkward in that situation, but you can usually work your way through it and still get to an end board comparable to this. So pretty powerful. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.